Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Well, hey, everybody, it's going to be a great show. I have an incredible guest today who's not only been successful in the business world, but also has dealt in the supernatural world. Now, before you say to yourself, okay, is this a show about ghosts? Maybe a little bit, but some serious content of things that happen in the afterlife. And Marybeth Rombach Nelson, successful business person, also somebody who has helped people bridge that gap between the sometimes superficiality that we have in the business world, right? And get into the soul of who people are. And she's given lectures all over the country on this topic as well as others. And she had her own near-death experience a number of years ago that she's going to share with us today, as well as some things that will make us hopeful of the future. Marybeth, before I talk too much, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I can't wait to get into some of this. Let's just start with the near-death experience if we can. How did all that come about?
All right, I'm actually going to start a little bit sooner because it was like my awakening into spirituality. So at age 14, my dad passed when he was 55. And a week after he passed, he tucked me in. And he looked younger, like about 30. And my parents had me at 45. So I was like shocked when I saw him and I hollered. And my mom actually said, I've seen Uncle Louie, I've seen Uncle Cliff, but we're Catholic, so don't talk about it. But this is beautiful. So that was like my awakening. After that, my spirituality opened wide. I could hear spirit, I could get messages for other people, but I didn't talk about it because moms keep it on the down low. So fast forward, I'm 30 years old. I had surgery and it was near Thanksgiving time and I had hemorrhaged all day, but they were short staffed because the nurses, obviously, when it's a holiday, there's not as many people working. So she finally came in to get me up. And I said, I can't get up. My hands were glued to the bed and I couldn't move because I had been hemorrhaging. I was so weak. So when she realized that, she, ran and called the doctor and I went in for a second surgery. Before they knocked me out, I was in shock. He started cutting and I could listen to the nurse and the doctor. And I was above myself watching them. And my dad approached me telepathically. I could see the body laying there, but soul to soul communication happened. And it was a beautiful white light. I can't describe it. It was blissful. It was unconditional love. It's better than anything I had ever felt earthly. It was peace. It was unconditional love that just would burst your heart. There's just so much. And my dad, I was so happy to see him. And I was in an abusive relationship. And the first thing he says to me is, you know better than to live your life like that. So I got scolded in heaven. So I wanted to stay because it was just pure love. And I had 4 children and little kids. So he basically said I couldn't stay. But heaven is so blissful and so peaceful and so tranquil that you don't want to come back to earth. And I didn't ever feel any pain. I didn't even feel them cutting into me. I felt nothing because my soul had popped out of my body. So there was no pain felt. And I'm not afraid to die. I don't want to die. But I know that death is not the end. And I know anyone listening, if you feel hopeless and you've just lost a family member, they're in heaven waiting for you to return. They can come in vivid dreams. Just ask them for a visitation in a dream or to give you a sign, and they can connect to you. And it's a beautiful thing. And religions all across different religions believe your soul goes on, that we are eternal beings. So knowing that, especially when you've lost someone or sudden death, is a beautiful thing, that you know you will be with them again and that they're always around us.
We've seen so much lately along those lines as we do this interview. It's a short time after the terrible event here in Texas with the flooding and all the people who unfortunately passed away. And people are hurting so much because of that event, for example. And then I think of a couple of other events that have happened recently. A pro soccer player over in Europe and his brother, who I think was a pro also, passed away this past weekend in a tragic car accident. I think of the two great hockey players last year, Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matt, who were killed by a drunk driver. And we see these things happen, Marybeth, and sometimes we say, where's God in all of this? How does God let this happen? How does he let this happen?
I feel like we all have our exit points, and obviously we send our prayers and love to all the family that are hurting right now. I'm sending love to them right now. And I believe we have exit points. And I think that our soul has a contract before we come back of how long we're going to be here. Be it a miscarriage that is like an angelic presence around the other children in the family, almost like a guardian angel for the rest of their lives. Or my brother died at 49 from an asthma attack on a business trip. He was allergic to something in the room and EMS didn't get to him quick enough. So I do think we have exit points. And I think that the family members sometimes that go through this, it changes their life perspective, that they start charities, they volunteer, they write books, they have compassion for other people and help the other people in this world profoundly. And through their loss, there's healing and healing themselves and others.
That's such a great point, and we do see that a lot. Sometimes out of sorrow becomes, hey, I realize what's important in life, and we do see so many people start, as you say, charities or different things to help other people. So great point, great answers. You know, that
Thank you.
age-old question that's probably been asked by everybody from the ancient prophets, probably up through the philosophers in Greece, probably up to you and I here in 2025. Why am I here?
Are you asking me why I'm here?
Why are any of us here?
Believe that we jump in this human body because the human body has the ability to process emotions, to physically hug other people, to physically show our love through action and through relationships, through intimacy, through sex, through that connection that you don't have as much sensation as physical touch. So I do believe that our soul is that divine spark in our heart. After my near death, I came back with love just shooting out of my heart. I also do Reiki healing that intensified like off the charts. My energy is so high that I can stop printers and TVs by walking into the room. I have to like literally bring myself back down because I can affect technology, and it wasn't as intense before my near-death experience. So to get back to your question, why are we all here? It is for our soul's growth, to learn compassion, to learn that love is really all that matters, and to have this beautiful physical body that we can express our love through.
Great answer. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
And so what daily habits, if we're talking about that, you're talking about vibrations being higher, obviously, right? For other people, for animals, for the planet itself, for all the good things in life. How can we raise our vibration on a daily basis?
I always go back to meditation, even though it calms us down and it it decreases our blood pressure, our heart rate. There's so many studies that show the health benefits. But by calming yourself down and doing 15, 20 minutes of meditation every day, and you can just sit in quietude, you can just go for a walk in nature. But what it does is it gives you clarity. And that clarity allows you, going back to spiritual and business, allows you to achieve your soul's goals. It gets you in touch with, why am I here on earth? What is my purpose? And you can use your soul's goals in your business life to achieve things, to do philanthropic things through your business for people while you're reaching your goal. It's like a twofer. So it really intermingles.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the soul and business, right? Because sometimes you've been in real estate many years. I've been in direct selling. We initially meet somebody and it's platitudes. How are you? It's a nice day, blah, 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 blah. Small talk, right? And then eventually you get to trying to sell them whatever it is that you're selling, right? And hopefully they're a qualified buyer, or at least interested in what you have to say. But how do you get to that point where you're really having a real conversation with them? And what I mean by a real conversation is, okay, what is it that really they're looking for in their life? Because most purchases, unless it's something, I mean, buying toothpaste in the store, big deal. But if you're
Right.
buying a home, for example, in your case, how do you bridge that gap where you say, hey, Mary Beth's a real person? Mary Beth had a near-death experience. Mary Beth has raised 4 children. Mary Beth is this human being. And of course, on the other side, that person has their story of who they are. How do you get to that point where you're talking about the real stuff and then double back to, okay, the transactional part of any business relationship, the transaction itself? How do you do that? How do you bridge that gap?
I had one experience. I was listing a house, and I obviously won't use a name, but her husband didn't use a CPAP machine. They were talking and he just didn't put it on one night. He died in his sleep from lack of air and oxygen. And she couldn't bear to be in that house anymore. And she was heartbroken and tearing herself apart, whether he would be mad at her for selling their family home where they raised their children. And she still had one child in the home. And I literally had him at the kitchen table where we were talking, standing beside her, telling me it was okay. I can't tell her that because I don't know how she's going to react to that. And I just said to her, I know he'll be okay with it. Ask how you feel in your heart and soul and call me tomorrow. And if you don't want to sell, it's okay. And if you do want to sell, it's okay. And she had a dream. I swear to God, she had a dream that night. He came to her and told her it's okay.
Wow.
So you have to be subtle because you don't know how it's going to be received. I had a job where I worked for Michigan Works and I taught retention at business conference and events and different things, retention and hiring. And I would still get spirit come through for different people. So in that environment, I would just subtly say, what do you think about this? And you can kind of read, if you listen to people intently, where they stand, and you might share a little more then if they're receptive.
Interesting.
So you got to feel it out.
And sometimes do people get a little bit, obviously you can't tell them, hey, I see your deceased family.
Husband standing at the kitchen table beside you. Yeah.
They'll think you're trying to con them, I would think.
Yeah. And I was sincerely wanted her to be okay with it.
It's so interesting though, because what an advantage you have in sales that the rest of us probably don't.
Because sometimes people don't have, it all goes back to self-awareness and self-actualization. First of all, knowing who you are, being confident in who you are, both spiritually and in business, not having any fear to move forward into an uncomfortable situation that will make you grow, and going for it. And it really, spiritual and business, really, it goes hand in hand. I work for 2 different chambers of commerce, and I've given many different talks at conferences on business. But more and more people are receptive to knowing they are a soul and wanting clarity. Because some people don't know if they're in the right profession or if they're on their soul's path. And clarity and slowing down, getting out in nature, asking your angels and archangels to come to you every day and give you help in every way. I do that every day. I call in the angels and ask for guidance. I pray, I meditate, I go for walks in nature. My thing is being by water. I love going to a stream or a waterfall or the beach. It just connects you to your soul. And that's where your guidance is. When I had my near-death experience, when I came back into my body, I saw two golden tethers going from my human body to my soul. And those tethers where I could get infused knowledge from my soul self to myself. And my life changed from that point forward because I knew that things didn't matter, people did. And that if I was ever in doubt, I could meditate and get that message through the tethers to my soul.
I shared with you earlier that I had an experience, almost a dream state, but I was awake during the time right after my mother passed a few years back, that I saw her with my infant daughter who had passed, reunited in heaven, holding hands. I saw,
Absolutely beautiful.
and how I think for people who are hurting, and like I said, there's a lot going on in the world. There's so much going on, so many sad situations, obviously. And there always are. This is not new, right? Throughout human history, we've always had wars and all sorts of different things happening catastrophically. But how do people be open to it? Because some people, they just say, no, when you're dead, and they don't have spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, or they just feel, and there are some religious groups for that matter that feel like, hey, when you're dead, you'll be
Right, right,
resurrected at some point. So how does somebody say, hey, I want to be at peace, whatever my faith is, I want to be at peace with the
right.
passing of a loved one? How do I open myself up?
You ask for a sign. And if you can't be receptive to it, you can suggest to the person, ask for a sign from your loved one that's crossed over, or your friend that's crossed over, and ask for it to appear in 48 hours and let it be something that it just gobsmacks you, that there's no denying it.
Is that why
Like,
when I saw John Edwards a few years back, yeah, he used a lot of visual signs of watches and things that belong to somebody. Is that why generally people do that?
you can hear them audibly talk. You can actually have your loved one come to you and say your name. And
Huh.
even if it's a baby, they're not a baby and they have the ability in spirit to say your name. And you'll audibly hear it.
Mm.
And my brother always teased me and doesn't believe this stuff and mocks me and, oh, yeah, sure. And he'll make fun of me. Oh, is there a spirit here? So we were when I was back in Michigan for the conference that I just talked at, I stayed at his house and I said, Mom and Dad, I'm tired of him mocking me and teasing me. Will you appear to him or come in a dream so he believes? So my mom audibly said his name. He flew out of bed and was hollering.
Wow.
Yeah, he can't say, he goes, there's something to this. So
Definitely.
it's when if the person doesn't believe or doesn't believe our souls go on, if they either have an out of body experience where they feel it, or they have an experience for someone they very much loved that visits them that is undeniable.
And it gives people peace a lot of times too, would it not?
Oh, it gives you peace because you realize that this death is not the end, it's just a transition. Our family members are still around us, our friends are still around us. And when we die, not that I want to die or I'm encouraging death. We need to live out our soul's path because I'm on my last life. I don't want to come back. That's a whole nother topic. But realizing that we will be with our loved ones again when we die, it helps us deal with the loss because even though we had their physical body die, we still have their
Mhm.
soul self still alive and well.
And let's talk a little bit about your book, Hope Heals. Where can they get it? When did you write it? And I assume from that title it has a lot to do with healing, but
I wrote it last year, and Hope Heals is always hold hope in your heart. And in our neighborhood, we have had 8 people in a 15-mile radius commit suicide in the last 5 years.
oof.
There are a lot in different age ranges too, from teenage to 65-year-old men. And even to we bought this house, the owner was in his 50s, he committed suicide too. And people need hope that if you're going through a tragedy, if you have to file bankruptcy, if you're getting divorced, if you just found out you have a disease, there could be something tomorrow that is the best thing that ever happened in your life. But if you don't let yourself have that tomorrow, you'll never know. If you think of all the tragic stories where people have gone from tragedy to triumph, if they would have committed suicide, they wouldn't have helped all those other people and advocated for the other people.
I'm going to ask you a silly question here, but it's not silly.
Okay.
You'll know where I'm going with this. Some of our audience will. What's your favorite Christmas movie? I'm going to guess it's the same as mine, and Jimmy Stewart was the star.
It was my mom's, and it's a Wonderful Life. My mom would sit us down every Christmas and we would watch that movie. And that movie, whoever wrote that movie was in touch with spirit,
Frank
for
Frank
sure.
Frank Capra. I know he produced.
Okay.
I don't know if he wrote it, but his son, and I believe even his grandson now is in the film business. But yeah, that was definitely a spiritual movie. Yeah,
Oh, he
yeah.
totally was connected to spirit.
And Jimmy Stewart himself was a very godly man, very good man, a very godly man. So it wouldn't surprise. So was Donna Reed for that matter. I mean, that most of that cast was. But yeah, no, I asked that because it popped into my head. I said,
Yeah.
I watch that movie even non-Christmas time sometimes to remind me what's valuable and what's important. And there's so many great lessons in that movie. If you haven't seen it, folks, watch it. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. It was done in I want to say 46, right after
Well,
World
I
War
think
II.
they have it on Amazon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because my mom, like I said, when we were kids, my mom died when I was 30, but when we were kids, she'd always she thought it was the best movie. And now that we're all have our own families, it's a tradition to watch that 2 or 3 times because it has profound life lessons on what matters. It's not the house, it's not the money.
Yep.
It is your family, it is your best friend. It is taking time to take your dog for a walk and just have silence and have solitude. It's time to forgive yourself from something you did. It's time to forgive your friend or your family member that you haven't talked to. You listening out there, find it in your heart to forgive and forgive yourself and to move forward and to have peace. Don't let something take your peace and your soul's path so that you can keep moving. And forgiving doesn't mean that you're not acknowledging what happened was wrong. It's just saying I'm going to give myself peace and allow myself to move forward.
I love what you just said there, and
Thank you.
easier said than done,
Right.
obviously. But I know in my case, I think of some of the decisions I've made in my life that weren't the right ones. But then I think back, what did I learn? And what would have happened if I had taken that other road? I think of that Robert Frost poem, right? Two roads diverge in the woods, right? You can only pick one. And
Right.
what if in 1983, I do what I was going to do, which was join the United States Marine Corps? And instead, the same week, I found out about a business opportunity through a friend. And I said, I'm going to try that first. That doesn't work out. I'm going to go to Marine Corps later. And sometimes I think, what if? Maybe I would have been a casualty of war. Or maybe I would have been the head of the United States Marine Corps today. I'll never know because I didn't take that
Right.
path. And sometimes you think back to the paths that you didn't take, that what if? How do you get at peace with those life altering decisions that you made when you think, boy, if I had gone left instead of right or right instead of left, maybe the circumstance would have been better or worse. How do you get at peace with that, Mary Beth? Because that's something
How you know, how you know is the synchronicity of one door opening after another. And that, if you have synchronicity that you're thinking about somebody and they call you and they like, hey, this job with so and so you'd be perfect for, and you go for the interview and they like you, and then it ends up exciting you, and then another door opens and another door, and it just keeps. It's when you get those closed doors continually where things don't work out, it's time to find a different road and
Yeah.
take a different path. So synchronicity gives you confidence to keep going and moving forward, because things, sometimes you're blessed with things that you didn't even ask for that appear, and you have gratitude for it, and you accept it, and you step out of your comfort zone and you keep going with it. And if those doors keep opening and opening, that's synchronicity that is blessed and magical happening in your life.
Yeah, great. So
Thank
tell
you.
us about your podcast, which I've been a guest on, by the way, and I'm a fan of.
Yeah, we had a good time. We
Yeah, we
we
did.
talked about change your perspective, change your life.
Zach, but
So,
I'm just like a boring business guy. I mean,
oh no, you got a lot of good stories.
yeah, that I do. But I got a lot of years of them, and hopefully a lot of years ahead of them before we're on the other side of things. But tell us about the Healing Soul LLC.
Yeah. Okay, so I did Blog Talk Radio actually 10 years ago. And I used to work with Body, Mind, Spirit magazine in Detroit, Michigan, and I had a Blog Talk Radio show. And like I said, I meditate every day. And a little over 2 years ago, my spirit guide in meditation kept saying, you need to do a podcast. And I was working for the Chamber of Commerce and I was busy. And I said, I don't have time to do a podcast. And I'm like talking in my head, like, and I kept pushing it away. So finally, I got a message, use the Healing Soul LLC, because I had kept that LLC. Because years ago, I wanted to open a healing center because I'm a Reiki master. So I had kept that LLC up. And their spirits telling me, so the last 2 years, I've done the Healing Soul, empowering wellness and oneness. And I talk about supernatural topics. I talk about meditation. I do little meditations. I interview people on near-death experience, on mediumship, and all different life topics. And I've never advertised, and it has just grown and grown, and agents contact me for their people that they represent to be on. So it's organically, synchronicity. It's just expanded. So I know that my soul was supposed to do this to give hope. That's the bottom line, is to give hope to people to heal.
I'd love your response to this. C.S. Lewis, the great British writer and theologian and all sorts of other great things that he was, had a statement, and this may not be verbatim, folks, all the English teachers out there, I apologize, but it was something to the extent of, we read to know we're not alone, and we read also because it's God's megaphone for relieving pain. How do people relieve pain in this world in a good way where they move forward? You mentioned before the people who made the long-term decision, perhaps to some short-term problem that they had in your neighborhood. Suicide is a permanent decision, can't
It
reverse.
is.
And unfortunately, I've known people who made that bad decision too. But rather than dwelling on that, when somebody's in that dark place, whether it's anything you mentioned, divorce, bankruptcy, illness, maybe a permanent illness, how do they, to go back to that Lewis quote about pain, how do they make that right decision to say, okay, I'm just going to face whatever that situation is? And you've had them in your life. I've had them in my life. Our listeners have had them in their lives, right? They're all still here. So they made a decision to
Yeah,
stick around.
every
They make the
single
right
human being on this earth has lived through a tragic experience where they would rather be gone than to go through it. I think every person listening can relate to a time in their life that was tragic. And I think that faith and connectedness is what gets you through. Being with friends that are compassionate, that will encourage you, that will uplift you, that will raise your energy vibration, And prayer does that. If you pray and you believe in God, prayer will raise your faith level, your hope meter will go up. And there's also solfeggios. I don't know if you've ever heard of the solfeggio tones.
No, no.
They're different frequencies that can raise your vibration. Our body, our cells vibrate. They've actually done clinical studies on cells. When the different frequencies are played, an unhealthy cell will vibrate at a healthy level.
I was in Costa Rica right
Mhm.
around, I think you interviewed me right before or right after I came back. And there was a gentleman down there that was brought in, a musician that had these white, almost like goblets that made sound. He went around like,
That's
is that?
sound bowls. But on YouTube, there are videos that have 9 million views
Wow.
that are solfeggios. Like 528 hertz is for miracles. If you need a miracle in your life, look up 528 hertz.
Do me a favor.
741 hertz is awakening your intuition. So if you need to have clarity about your life, play 741 hertz. 963 is divine consciousness, allowing you to talk to your spirits and your family that have crossed, allowing you to get a message from God or the Holy Spirit. And this isn't just, like I said, NASA has done studies and there's been other clinical studies, and they were trying to disprove it. And when they were trying to disprove it, the one guy's wound on his leg healed and it hadn't healed.
Wow.
So there's something to this. So then I don't know exactly how they did it, but they took the individual cell and measured the hertz off the cell before and after. And there's healing in frequencies. But you think your atoms in your body and your cell vibrate. You send off a vibe through your auric field. The earth vibrates, the earth resonance that we walk on the earth. And that can calm us, grounding ourselves. Everything vibrates. We're just thumped in this body, but our soul recognizes. That's why we have peace by water. The waterfall, there's a resonance comes off the waterfall and soothes our soul. When we go for a walk in the forest, there's a resonance that comes off of the trees. So it just makes perfect sense. And more than ever, the scientific and the holistic are finally starting to come back together.
Yeah. I interview so many doctors that are traditional doctors on my show. And it's amazing how many of them are telling me about taking lion's mane, for example. I'm like, gee, this is a medical doctor. He's talking to me about an herb.
Right.
And there's so many points like that. So I do love that, because I think our friends in the medical profession are open now to things maybe that they weren't previously, that they don't have all the answers. A pill isn't necessarily the answer. Maybe it is a massage. Maybe it is a walk in the forest. Maybe it is
Or
earth.
changing your diet.
Yeah, exactly.
What we eat, using whole foods instead of all the processed, giving up soda and eating healthier, but just realizing the interconnection between yourself, between the afterlife, and the connection. Like I said, I saw two golden tethers going to my soul. And I know that's true for everyone. You are connected always to your soul. And I always say, I open my heart, I open my mind, and I open my soul to receive messages.
Come back for a second now. When you said that the hertz, give that, because people are going to want to look that up on YouTube.
That's like a frequency.
Yeah, I understand that.
So
But
if you type in solfeggio,
solfeggio,
solfeggios,
oh,
Solfeggios. And it's on YouTube, and they have one that runs for 9 hours. If you had just had an operation and you need to heal, you can literally fall asleep to that tone playing in the background, and you will feel better. It helps depression. I'm not a clinical doctor, I want to say that, but The proof is in the pudding. When you talk to doctors about this stuff, sometimes they roll their eyes and you say, all right, try it for a month.
Yeah.
See if it works for you. And then they're like, I slept better than I have ever. And I'm like, then they're like, there's something to this.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm a big fan of earthing. I've read the book on it, and I've been doing it for years on my front lawn. But it is funny when I can get in the water, which is hard in Texas, by the way, in this part of Texas.
Right.
But I can get in the water and do earthing, which is where,
Right.
by the way, folks, if you don't know what earthing is, take your shoes and socks off because it's not natural. It disconnects you from the vibrations of the earth, and it'll reconnect you with the earth. Walk in water if you can. Yeah, in a lake or in the ocean in particular, and there's just so much power to it and vibration. But no, this is just amazing, Marybeth. I'm just enjoying this so much. I could probably go on for another 2 hours. But
I'm enjoying it too. We can talk easily with each other for sure.
Easily. You're easy to interview, needless to say. But just in wrapping up, okay, how do we, as human beings, right? And you've touched on a lot of this today, and thank you so much for your insights and your experiences. But how do we get those better angels in our lives? Because we wrestle constantly with everything going on in the world. Everybody's wrestling with it constantly, the good, the bad, the ugly. How do we get those better angels on our side?
I would just add, I have an affinity to Archangel Gabriel, who I get infused knowledge from. It's knowledge that I don't know how I know it, but I know it by asking. I ask Gabriel, come to me and give me a solution to this problem and let me know and realize the message. So asking, you can go through the names of the angels and ask them to come forward. Before we started this podcast, I asked the angels and archangels to step into the room and to bless myself, to bless you, John, and to bless every listener listening, and to raise their vibration in hope and in healing.
Love it. Love it. Marybeth, if people want to contact you, I know they can through the show, but is there another way as well, or a website as well?
Yeah, my website is marybeth333.com, and 333 means angels are all around you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, John, for having me.
We got to do this every few months because people need hope, and you've given them some hope today. Hopefully some peace if you're going through a tough time. I'm praying for you. Marybeth's praying for you.
And then one more thing, the podcast is called The Healing Soul LLC, and you can get The Healing Soul on Apple and on Spotify.
Great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.